919 days ago, at approximately midnight, I was discovered by my campus police at the university pond, and I was section 12'd. I was taken to the hospital against my will. This was an involuntary commitment. I ultimately ended up being diagnosed with bipolar disorder with psychotic features, presenting with severe mania and psychosis. This disorder very speedily became the bane of my existence. Without question, it would present many challenges in the days, weeks, months, and even years to come. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my life since that moment, which was a turning point in my manic experience. I'm going to take you through my manic episode. I'm going to walk you through the aftermath that immediately followed my manic episode. And I'm going to talk about the tumultuous recovery process, full of ups and downs, that transpired in the years that followed. I'm making this video in the hope that others will find this informative, particularly maybe being able to spot the signs in themselves or others of what bipolar disorder looks like and how it manifests itself. Bipolar disorder is made up of two major episodes, depressive and manic. I didn't know about any of this at the time. Not that I have never encountered mental illness before. I've had social anxiety. I've certainly had my periodic bouts of depression, but I never experienced bipolar disorder up until my junior year of college in fall of 2021. At the beginning of the semester, it's safe to say that things were normal, but it's also necessary to point out that things were going extraordinarily well. I was productive and proactive on my campus. I was achieving high marks in my classes and was on track to finishing the semester with A's had I kept the consistency I had at the beginning of the semester. I was proactive in my fraternity on campus, taking up multiple leadership roles as chapter historian and public relations chair, managing the chapter social media accounts. And during my tenure, the chapter saw its most growth on social media ever. And we went from being one of the least followed accounts on campus to being the third most followed account on campus in just my one semester as social media chair. So things were looking good. I got a job, I had friends, and I was getting myself a university education. But as the semester progressed, my health deteriorated. My mental health, in particular, plummeted. And that's what distinguished me from the rest of the people that I was surrounding myself with. And this quickly became noticeable by those that I surrounded myself with, that there was something off about Tyler. At the beginning, mania was glorious. It was glorious in the sense that I felt smarter, I felt more confident interacting with others, more confident flirting with women, and this bolstered confidence gave me a heightened self-esteem. And I felt like I was on top of the world. I felt like nothing could inhibit me at that particular moment in time. I felt unstoppable. But then I started to feel invincible. And that feeling of invincibility was soon superseded by delusions, strong delusions that my frat brothers were up to no good, which led to animosity between us. Delusions that I was member of a prominent political family, the Kennedy family in particular, and that people were out to get me, government agents were out to assassinate me. Delusions that there was a grand conspiracy against myself and that I had to expose it to the world before they got me. Now, as you can imagine, these delusions would present many challenges. I started to neglect my obligations, things that I previously prioritized, like my education and my job, started to go on the back burner. I started skipping classes. I started drinking to cope with the severe manic symptoms that I was experiencing. And I, in some sense, had a mixed episode now because I was starting to feel depressed. It bothered me that people didn't adhere to the delusions that I was disseminating. It bothered me that people thought I was crazy. These delusions only intensified, and eventually I would even have hallucinations. I would start making phone calls in the backyard of my frat property to people that didn't even exist. And this ultimately manifested in me becoming hospitalized. After speaking with a friend on the phone, a friend who does exist, he contacted police to express concern about myself. And that's why police met me at Campus Pond that particular midnight. The police were very kind and considerate of the fact that I was clearly showing a mental illness. And I remember pretending that I was contacting MI6 to come save me. I felt like I was part of some clandestine operation to help the world. And at the same time, held on to a delusion that people in the government were after me. I talked the ears off of the paramedics who took me to the hospital. And I remember the paramedics, nurses, and doctors almost finding it comical, the things that I was saying. I had this sardonic sense of expression where I was iterating beliefs that were just so nonsensical, and that any rational person, when confronted with, would have a reaction of disbelief. In the downstairs of the hospital, they took my phone away. And that was a good thing. But then they gave it back. So long as I didn't post pictures or take videos of what was going on in the hospital, I was allowed to have my phone. And I started posting that I had been kidnapped on my social media. I started posting that I was going to get the mainstream media and the governor and attorney general to show up to break me out, and that there would be like a ceremony or some type of parade to welcome me leaving the hospital, which I saw as unjust. I saw as a kidnapping. I was moved to the upstairs, and in the upstairs, my delusions continued to get worse and intensify. Over the course of my stay in the upstairs in the psych ward, I was very affable, more than I usually am, interacting with the other patients, and I try to get the patients to conspire with myself against the hospital staff and their tyranny of not letting us go outside at least once a day, of not giving us the meals that we wanted. An interesting thing about the upstairs is that the groups were completely up to you as the patient. They were not mandatory. You had the option whether or not you wanted to attend these meetings. And in my manic state, I attended almost all of them. I attended as many as I could. I was awake for days at a time. I was not getting sleep. And you should never sleep on the importance of sleep. But when you're in a manic state, you don't have the insight to know these things, to think rationally. And so I acted on a whim. I was impulsive. I was unpredictable. In fact, I was predictably unpredictable. I remember at one point being shown a suggestion box, and I wrote an 8-page essay delineating the reasons why I'm not crazy. And in that letter was a whole bunch of crazy. I talked about how I was orchestrating a massive mental health event on campus to help save lives and prevent suicides. I talked about how I knew a military general in the Air Force and that he was going to break me out of here. And I actually had hallucination phone calls with this general on the phone who did not even exist. So my diagnosis with the symptoms I exhibited was bipolar type 1 disorder with psychotic features, presenting with severe mania and psychosis, which is a complete break with reality. You would think under these circumstances that I would have stayed in the hospital, but that is not what happened at all. The hospital released me, and I went back into the community without any treatment plan of action in place. I went without medications, with no psychiatrist scheduled, no forthcoming appointments to monitor the symptoms that got me there in the first place. They kind of just kicked me out the door. Maybe it was an insurance reason, I don't know. In the hospital notes, which I've looked back on, they stated that my symptoms had vastly improved. And yet, the day before they released me, I was having hallucination phone calls. How can you make that statement? It's not a cogent statement to make. It's not corroborated by the facts of the situation, and yet it happened. And so I went back into the community. And my symptoms only exacerbated over the course of the semester. I started lashing out at my frat brothers, thinking that they were raping women, or that some of them were Nazi agents. And I started to lose trust and faith in my own family, suspecting that they were involved in this conspiracy to get me, that there were good family members and there were bad family members. And I lashed out at those that I perceived as the bad family members. I would end up returning to my community shortly after leaving the hospital. And you would think things would get better being away from that environment, surrounded by alcohol and drugs and parties and noise and crowds. But things only continued to spiral out of control. I continued disseminating nonsense, conspiracies, and delusions on my social media pages. My social media accounts pretty much all got banned. My Snapchat got banned, my Instagram got banned. And what did I do? I created new ones and added all the people back who I had added before to continue disseminating the nonsense that got me banned in the first place. And of course, those accounts ultimately got banned as well. What accounted for this? Well, it's attributed to the mania, the psychosis. I should have never been left out of the hospital, but that's what happened, and that's something I've had to come to terms with and accept. I can't change the past. I can only look back on it. We all have our struggles. What truly separates us is how we react to and overcome obstacles going forward. And I don't want to just dwell on the past. So the major consequences of my mania were that I was expelled by my university. I was booted out of my frat. And these took a huge emotional toll on me because my university was like a second home to me. The fraternity I was in, that brotherhood, is something that I strongly believed in. And they were very close friendships, contrary to this idea that they're friends that you pay for. I never met a group of guys that I was closer to. And losing those two things took a huge emotional toll on myself and was severely detrimental to my mental well-being. And I eventually ended up getting hospitalized again, but this time voluntarily, at an outpatient facility. I use voluntarily loosely, that word, because I was actually required by a court to get mental health treatment. And so I complied with that court requirement and got medical treatment. And I was put on a medication called Abilify. And within weeks, I started to experience significant improvement in my symptoms. They started to alleviate to a small degree. And I was now of a whole different pedigree. No, not so fast, not right away. It took about 4 weeks to 6 weeks for the medication to fully take me out of mania. So this manic episode lasted from fall 2021, well into late March, early April of 2022. Even in March, I was sending out crazy emails. I had sent out a radically crazy email to Alex Jones, of all people, talking about the conspiracy against me. So that just goes to show and speaks volumes about the deteriorated state that my mind was still in. So going forward, I started having a lot of medication trial and error. I was put on different mood stabilizers and antipsychotics and antidepressants to try and keep my mood in a stable place so that I don't go back into mania, to try and eliminate and reduce the psychotic symptoms that I was experiencing, and to help deal with the negative thought spirals and negative racing thoughts that consumed my mind. And the antidepressants were, of course, used to try and mitigate the severity of my depression. And it took a long time to find the right medication regimen. In fact, I didn't find it until I actually ended up getting a new psychiatrist, but nonetheless at the same place. And over the course of trying all these medications, I rapidly gained weight. In fact, I went from 180 pounds at the time I started medications, and that skyrocketed up to 354 pounds at my peak. So the medications I have a love-hate relationship with. They definitely saved my life in the sense that they restored my sanity, and I'll never take that for granted. I'll never downplay the impact that these medications had on my life. I know people are hesitant about medications, but I truly believe that it's irresponsible for someone with bipolar to not take medications because of the consequences that being off medications can have on themselves and others. Over the last few years, I've had a very precarious financial situation as a result of the deep-seated depression that accompanied me in the aftermath of my mania. And now that I was coming to terms with everything that transpired and looking back and thinking, wow, I can't believe I said this. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said this to this person. I can't believe I did this to that person. It really affected me, had an incredibly negative impact on my mental well-being. I could not stop thinking about the horrible things I said and did, the terrible behavior that I exhibited that was completely antithetical to the character of Tyler Adolfo. So my finances were in dire straits. I felt too ashamed and guilty and embarrassed to even get a job. And that would go on for the next 2 years. I would have to rely on cash benefits from my state, which was a whopping $400 a month. And that's actually been recently cut off from myself, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But for about 2 years, I was just operating and surviving off $400 a month and the $200 in food stamps that come with that. And it's a very nominal amount. It's a very stressful amount to live off of. But I guess that's what happens when you don't work, right? Regardless of depression, if they say that, you can't expect to have the life you want without working. But I was in such a depressive state, it didn't really particularly bother me in the sense that it wasn't a top priority for me to get to work at the time. So I ended up getting a new psychiatrist eventually because I had lots of issues with my old one. I felt like she wasn't receptive to my desire to go on medications that don't present rapid weight gain as a side effect. She dismissed my concerns about erroneous mistakes in her note-taking, which could have serious implications on my applications for disability. I talk about that in a different video called I Walked Out of My Psychiatrist. I like my new psychiatrist a lot. He's already made major medication changes for myself, and I think they've been largely for the better. I've had multiple therapists in the past few years. One kind of just resigned out of nowhere, and the other one also just recently resigned as of a week ago. And so now I have no therapist currently. Apparently, the place I go to held a hiring event and nobody showed up, so it looks like I won't be getting a therapist anytime soon. There was recently like a merger or a buyout. So one company now owns the one that I was previously going to. I'm still going to the same places, but it's under a new company. And I guess people have been fleeing this new company. I guess they just don't like the rules and particular regulations of it. Over time, I've been able to make small steps of change. I was confined to my room for a long period of time, experiencing social isolation, which only really fed into the negative thoughts and feelings that I was having occur. But I took small steps here and there that in the long run have made a phenomenal difference. The first thing is, for the longest time, the only reason I had gone outside was to go to appointments, because I had to. But I started to go and get iced coffee in the morning when nobody else was out, despite the social anxiety that I had felt that had been so overwhelming to myself going outside. I did it. Despite the agoraphobia, the fear around people, I did it. I started going out for iced coffee in the morning, and I committed myself to that. And so far as I had the cash to do so, I would go and get an iced coffee at Honeydew, a large blueberry iced coffee with extra cream and sugar. And then I would walk home while drinking it. And while doing so, I would think about where I could have been had this not all happened. I started thinking about where I could be if I start to make change. And eventually I started going to AA meetings again. Even though I wasn't consuming alcohol and didn't have strong urges to drink anymore, I felt it was necessary to start putting myself in these uncomfortable situations so that I can start to feel better about myself. Eventually I started to go to church again. And I've gone a couple of times now, and it's really reinvigorated my spirits. It's refilled me and provided me with a sense of purpose, a sense of direction. And I started to go to the gym in December of last year, and I'm now currently down to 306 pounds. So between December 17th and as of the making of this video, May 3rd, 2024, I've gone from 354 pounds to 306 pounds. And it's been fluctuating between there and like 310. But the point is I'm going in the right direction. I'm on a positive trajectory. And I'm also happy to report that for the first time in 2 years, I actually started a job. And I am currently looking for a new one, actually. I'm going to be starting a new one soon. I have confidence in that. I'm working with the Mass Rehabilitation Commission, which helps people with disabilities find jobs in order to get a job that's more suitable to my aspirations and abilities. So I'm very ecstatic about that. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. In many ways, my passion has been restored. I started reading again. I've started walking and running again, whether it be outside or at the gym. I've started talking with my family again, and a lot more extensively than I had at the beginning of the aftermath of my manic episode. And relationships have been restored as well. I started reconnecting with those who I had weird experiences with during mania. And of the 7 I contacted, 5 were friends from college. 1 was a teacher from high school that I had had very bizarre interactions with during my mania. And the other was my pastor. And in all 7 cases, they were understanding and accepting when I reached out to them and explained to them what had happened in detail. The 5 college friends forgave me and told me to not worry about the past. The past is the past. And I'm very grateful that they're so well versed in mental illnesses and that they were willing to be understanding like that, because not everybody is going to be understanding in this world, right? It depends on the person, but mental illness is such a taboo topic, and you never really know what a person's going to say, what their thoughts or beliefs are going to be on your particular situation and circumstances. So I'm grateful I reconnected with friends, including my best friend. We've actually been talking on the phone now just about every other day. And, we've made a deal that we're going to talk to each other at least once every week or every other week so that we can maintain that connection. So I'm grateful for that. So I'm searching for a new job with MRC. I'm looking for something that will, more suit my passions and help serve as a bridge to where I ultimately want to go. I always wanted a job where I could utilize my public speaking passion and skill. And so that's what Mass Rehab is currently helping me with. And I'm really eager to see where it takes me. Going forward, I have some long-term plans as well. I was so close to finishing college. I was in my junior year, and I had so many advanced placement credits from high school that I was so close to the finish line. I want to graduate college to get a good job and help my mom out, help myself out. So my long-term plan is to just build savings, and eventually I'll get my transcript from my old college, which I got kicked out of, and I could transfer it to a new college. And, there's been a lot of positives lately. And that's why I'm making this video, because I want it to be a message of hope. Not all is negative. I'm still not in a perfect position, but we don't need to be in a perfect position. Vince Lombardi said that perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. That's what I've been doing. I've been catching excellence. I'm feeling good for the first time in years. I'm undergoing a physical transformation. I couldn't even get this hoodie on a few months ago, and now I'm slowly able to being able to get it on. As you can tell, I still can't get it to fit exactly. I wouldn't wear it out in public necessarily right now, but my clothes are starting to fit as I'm getting back into shape. I'm working. I'm making money. I'm not being reliant on the state. I'm helping out my mom. I'm helping out myself. I'm reconnecting with my friends. I'm going outside again. I have aspirations and hopes. And I'm not giving up on my dreams. And I'm never surrendering my hope. For anyone out there suffering with bipolar, or those who know someone suffering from bipolar that you care about, I want you to know that it's okay to not be okay. Remember that it's not your fault that you have this condition. And as overwhelming as it can be, it is within our power to foment positive changes. Regardless of how small or minuscule these changes may seem, they're still worth doing, because small changes add up to become big changes. The sum of small change is big change. So the accumulation of positive steps can become giant leaps. I didn't start off big in my recovery. It took me an extraordinarily long time to get where I am. And it's changed my perspective on how I see things. I don't look at these past few years as a gigantic waste of time. I see it as if my brain got injured just like any muscle would. Like if you break your wrist or your arm or your shoulder, it takes time to heal. It doesn't happen overnight. I took my time resting my brain and recovering my brain and slowly getting control of my central command center. And then I started to weed out the negatives of my central command center. And now I'm in a position where I have hope. I'm in a position where I'm feeling good for the first time in years. And I know this has coincided with me not uploading YouTube content as frequently as I once did, but that's just more coincidence than anything. I've just been so busy and focused on life that I haven't been able to do it. So it's not due to a lack of want of making videos. I definitely want to keep making videos, and I'm going to keep making videos. And I appreciate all of you sticking around and tuning in. It means a lot to me. Your comments mean the world to me. But never give up. And that goes for anyone, not just people with bipolar. There's still hope out there. No matter how old you are, no matter what your circumstances in life are, we can do this. We can get through this. We can overcome these obstacles. As President Calvin Coolidge once said, nothing in this world could take the place of persistence. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. My name is Tyler Adolfo, and 919 days ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I have bipolar disorder, but I am not bipolar disorder. It's a huge part of my identity, but it is not my identity. I refuse to let it define who I am or limit my potential, because I know what I'm capable of. And without question, I know that I have a bright future so long as I stay persistent, so long as I maintain that positive attitude and keep persevering, so long as I have that passion. There's no telling how far I'll go. I'm proud already of how far I've come, and it is my intention to keep on going strong and staying strong and being proactive and making the best out of bad situations and really reaping the benefits of the good situations. Time goes fast. We're only here for a limited time. At the end of the day, as the battle rapper Disaster once said, we will all go out like the animals we are. So let's make the most of our time here. Keep striving to be better and improve ourselves. And when we look back on the past, I think we should take the advice of what my friend Logan recently said to me in a phone call. When we look on the past, let's do it to learn and get better. Otherwise, what are we doing? Look on the past to learn and get better. Otherwise, What are we doing? Thank you so much for watching, everybody. My name is Tyler Adolfo. I appreciate you watching. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I have plenty of videos about bipolar disorder and a wide array of other content to match your content needs. So definitely take a look at my channel if you're new here. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you so much. I hope that you all have an extraordinarily excellent day. Stay healthy, stay active, and let's do the most we can to get the best we can out of this life. Love y'all. Love and light to all.